Okay, yes, here we are. We are live. It's the Merc here. It's been a while. Merc on the microphone. It's been many moons. Um, there's quite a few reasons that I'm actually back in the game. Briefly, well, it might not actually be that brief. But that being said, I wanted to start off by saying, this talkback is sponsored by a curator, new application. So in the description, you're going to see two links. So you can actually get this application now on iOS or Android. And it's the first movie ratings and reviews validator system. So you can get movie ratings you can actually trust. So, it's anti-trolls, anti-fake reviews, anti-bots, anti-spam. In order to leave reviews, you have to get vetted on this system. It's a game. It's fun. It's interesting. It's exciting. You can follow other people. Check it out. The link is on there. It's free. So, make sure you give that a whirl. Mycurator.com is the website as well. If you want to check out for more information, watch the video of the how-to and whatnot. So make sure you check that out. So let's get into this topic. Basically, look, this is about Game of Thrones. Look, I've said this for years. Back in the day when Talkback was on the money. When we were out there actually doing things. But obviously, we're the original instigators of this whole craze of our fan videos and whatnot. For guys who were here about 10 years ago, it's actually more than 10 years ago. We did this in 2007 till 2010. Those were the three years of the heat of Talkback. I didn't like Game of Thrones. Never did. I always thought it was kind of pretentious, and there was too much violence, and the sex felt very gratuitous, and it just felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. It was just one of those things. And it's a taste thing. There's some people who love this stuff, some people who don't. I was one of the guys who didn't love it. That being said, for that reason, I never really kept tabs very closely on the narratives and the storylines involved. I really just stayed away, and I would maybe binge. I'd come back and I'd binge and I'd watch 3 years worth of episodes at once, and then I wouldn't watch it again for two seasons or something. So I've had 3 binges, and the latest one is when I took in end of season 6, season 7, and season 8 all at once, which season 8 is the last season, which I just did. And because I just got tired of people just talking about this stuff online constantly. That being said, the Merc has now seen all episodes of Game of Thrones. And what's my opinion? My opinion is, look, if I was a fan of this stuff, I would probably be very upset because I felt, season 8 didn't really live up to the setups that we've had, or that was put forward all over those previous 6 seasons. Because I would say seasons 7 and 8 are sort of connected in that they felt like it was just one big season split into 2, if you ask me. Now, there's various reasons for this, in my opinion, and there's been conversations about the fact that let me actually get onto this. Let me get onto this stream channel here. And okay, we're on the stream channel. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where I really felt it left a lot to be desired because it was so quick. I think things got resolved very neatly. And I think one of the reasons being, and I read an article about this shift from sociological style storytelling to psychological style storytelling. And just to put that very simply, the way that Game of Thrones used to be when it was adhering to the George R.R. Martin books, it was based on the story being the most important factor. So the reason why anybody could die, anybody could be killed, anybody could be betrayed, anything could happen was because the focus was really more on the politics and the world the world of the story of Westeros and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to you focusing on any goal or desire of any specific character. That obviously changed once they went ahead of the books after episode five, season five, because at that point, it's became, Hollywood, for better want of a better word. I mean, it just became a situation where, you know, the show became what a typical Hollywood TV show would be, where you had big set pieces that were focused around particular characters. Particular characters were sort of forced into paths that would allow for particular situations to occur. There are a lot of very, very strange, choices. And, look, I'm a layman, so I don't even want to claim to be this massive Game of Thrones aficionado. You know, I don't want to be a big Game of Thrones expert, but I did definitely have opinions on. Hmm, I did actually have opinions um, about the way things operated, and I definitely did have opinions on the way things um, went down, in the season, because it just didn't make sense. And I felt, if anybody, just a rational person, even if you're not a Game of Thrones fan, watch this stuff. Is it something that you would necessarily fully appreciate or accept? And that is the real question at hand, in my opinion. And when I looked at it, I was like, okay, why are you having battles outside your fortress? I mean, I understand that you want to have the big set piece of battles and so forth, but it doesn't make sense. If you have a castle, the whole point is you use the advantage of that castle by putting your forces in it, like Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings. It's just that that's the reason why you have a castle with high walls and no windows, with parapets for archers and all that, and catapults and all that. That's the point. So if you have that, why would you, against the army of the dead, position your entire army outside the castle? And this was actually a repeating theme, because when the mercenaries in the later episode were fighting against Daenerys's Unsullied and all that sort of stuff, and they had them outside the castle walls of King's Landing, and I was just like, why do you do that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, on just pure logic, inherent logic of the world that we're talking about. So that was the one thing. The second thing is, to do with the battle strategies, which is just common sense to me, is why would you have your Dothraki? You have all these who are your best hand-to-hand fighters. Like, these are your best close quarters fighters. Why would you send your close quarters fighters on a kamikaze mission against an army of undead? The only thing I can say about it is that it looked cool, but it felt like that was the reason for actually having it, was because visually it gave a great visual, but strategy wise it makes no sense. And I think the problem with this is that if this was a show that never really adhered to any logic and it was always about the razzmatazz and the glitz and the glamour of it, it would actually be fine. But because you've based the entire thing so strongly on logic and verisimilitude, I like that word, verisimilitude. Look that up, okay? Because you've based it so strongly on that, you have to ask the question, how the hell would any general worth his salt send just one line of your forces? Remember that it's not like they even charge with everybody. They charge with all the Dothraki and you end up losing most of them. You lost a hell of a lot of them just like that, because you could have gained so much if they were behind the wall, so that they were the first close quarters opponents that the army of the dead faced as soon as they came. They broke through the ranks. So obviously you'd have your guys behind the wall and you'd be all your archers and all your catapults, and when the army of the dead managed to climb or scale the wall or break through the wall, boom, you hit them with they hit the Dothraki foot. So that's one of the things. Then obviously you had a whole load of conveniences, the fact that Jamie Lannister and what's her name, the big lady, I can't remember what her name is, Brianna of Tarth or whatever, didn't die, even though they're fighting front lines against a whole army of the dead, and multiple times they were swarmed, and I'm like, you're getting swarmed by these things, but none of them is stabbing you. Isn't that like the first thing that they would do, is try and slit your throat and stab you in the heart, stab you in the neck, stab you in the leg, whatever? and they were coming out of these things unscathed. And that's like that in a show that dispenses of people quickly with no regard. The fact that these guys were surviving this makes no inherent logic within the world of Game of Thrones. Makes no sense. So that was obviously an issue as well with that. Obviously, you have the Deus Ex. I mean, look, this is spoilerific. Okay, this is very spoilerific. But of course, you have the Deus Ex Machina of Arya being the one who takes down the Night King, and I'm just like, listen. In the moment, it's very satisfying. Like within the moment, I was like, wow, you know what the truth is. Let me put it this way: Arya being the one who kills the Night King is actually a good idea. It's the way it was executed and the way you built up to it that makes no sense. This is a girl that during this episode is barely surviving the army and the army of the dead that had broken into the actual keep and was in there, and she was like hiding from them, evading them, and very cool sequence. It was all good. How does someone like that, who is only barely surviving minions, like these are like foot soldiers, jump and listen? How did she even get close enough? There's a whole bunch of like um what do they call it? The Night King's main guys, forget what their name is, standing next to him. She somehow manages to evade those top dogs, okay, and does a flying jump at the Night King, who catches her by the throat, and somehow doesn't realize that she's about to stab him with. Listen, the whole thing again in the moment, it's like, oh, this is really cool. I'm really enjoying this. But when you actually think about it, you're like, this is crazy. This guy, he's so hyper aware every time we've ever seen him. You can't get anywhere near this guy. Everybody, and so that, and then you have to think about what the hell was the point of, um, um, what do they call it, Theon, doing all the stuff he did just to be dispensed the way it was. Because the thing is, like, if you build up Theon's redemption story to the point where he's fighting off all those people and Bran is behind him, and you've got all these things, why do you just let him die like that? Like, it actually make. Do you know how? In all honesty, the inherent thing of that, for it all to make sense and be satisfying, Theon should have killed the Night King and died doing it. Then his circle is complete. That's the sort of way that Game of Thrones typically would go, based on the first 5 seasons. That Theon is going to die, but at least he gave his life saving Bran and killing the Night King, who, and him being like the most unlikely guy based on. You see, the thing is, and this is the crazy part. You've built Theon up as this guy who was a coward, and then slowly and gradually he starts doing brave things, right? So he goes and he saves his sister from captivity, and then he comes and instead of running away, he comes to fight in the war. And then in this situation, he makes this circle around Bran and is the last man standing. What's the point if he doesn't kill the Night King? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you'd think would happen. And to compound it, the Night King died too easily based on the fact of who this guy is. We never even got to see this guy really fight. I mean, look, there were some cool parts, when he resurrected all the people that were already killed and he just brought them all back to life. That was pretty scary to see, because you're like, my God, we just fought all these guys. And just like that, the guy just brings them back. It's crazy. Crazy. That being said, a whole set of cool sequences doesn't make a good episode, and I think that's the problem. Let me tell my co-host, that I'm wrapping this up uh almost. Co-host chosen one is going to be coming in for the is going to be coming in. So let me just wrap this up, because I don't want to dwell on this, because we've got a lot of ground to cover here. But let's just think about this now. Let's think about the finale. Let's talk about the finale episode, okay? And guys, you can, I know that people are just coming in, but if you want to send any thoughts, you can type it into the chat box if you have any thoughts about what's going on. Um, Basically, let's talk about that final episode. I mean, I have to be real with you guys. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be really real. That was actually one of the worst Game of Thrones episodes I've ever watched. And I'm not even really a fan, so I can only imagine what like a real fan would think. But because I'm watching and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even really a fan of this thing, but this is kind of like the worst episode. Like it was just not exciting. It wasn't an exciting viewing, and I don't want to be harsh, but that's just how I felt. Because I'm watching and I'm like, nothing, considering the epic nature of all the stuff that has happened. And let's not even get down to the madness of the way Jamie Lannister died was ridiculous. Because the thing is, this guy's entire cycle put him right back where he started. He had no growth. It's like you're looking at this guy, you're like, did you learn nothing after all these 8 years? You learn absolutely nothing about the folly of being involved with this lady and the fact that you've been cast out, you've gone and you've joined these people. All it took was you realizing that they were going to attack. Did you not think that was going to happen? That's, that's what I'm saying. Just his idiocy, how foolish they made this guy, and then justifying it by him saying that, oh yeah, my father always did say I was stupid or something like that. I'm like, what? So it's almost like you're aware that you've created a stupid character who's doing stupid things, but in order for him to do the things required for the story so that you can make your narrative work, you're actually validating the fact that the guy's an idiot. Because, Jamie, if you're trying to escape, why are you wearing your metal hand? How stupid is that? That is literally the first thing you take off. So, did you forget? And if you forgot that, you're a clown. Like, that is the thing about, I'm like, listen, the problem, and I think the problem that a lot of fans had, and we know about the petition and we know about all these things, which I think is just, they're wasting your time. But I think the problem that a lot of guys had is the fact that the decisions being made by the characters are so stupid on basic common sense levels that it's difficult for you to suspend your disbelief. Like, let's talk about like the biggest fact feature of, like, Daenerys being what do they call it? What's the word? Being, going mad and becoming a villain, you know, in the piece. I have no problems with that. I think that's actually a very good idea, personally. I think it's a very good idea. I mean, I don't see an issue, and I think it's interesting because it's kind of unexpected based on how you set her up, and the fact that how the Mad King was also a Targaryen and was, genetically maybe they're just predisposed to this sort of behavior and so on. But the thing is, you've got to layer that stuff in. She can't just suddenly go crazy, guys. Come on, I mean, that was the thing about it. I was just like, the way it happened was so sudden and extreme. She would turn from one moment you're trying to save everybody and be a good queen to you murder a whole city of men, women, and children. What? It's 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 just it's. I mean, that's the sort of thing you do in like some Hollywood movie, which ironically is what I was saying in the beginning. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. The way she died was shocking as well. I'm like, again, stupid decisions. Daenerys, you just betrayed the trust of all these people and did something that's just pure lunacy. You know the kind of guy Jon Snow is because you're supposedly in love with this guy. So you know the kind of guy he is. So if you're in love with him and you know the kind of guy he is, and you know that, and you've already seen his reaction when you give your great speech, you see you look at the guy's face, you see that the guy isn't down with what the hell you're doing. Why are you rolling up to the guy telling him to join you and you're trying to kiss him and whatever, and you're not on it? Do you know how quick I would lock this guy down? That guy is going to be in a jail cell right next to Tyrion. If this woman had a brain, even if you love the guy, I'm like, put the guy in a cell and I'll be talking to that guy through the bars, trying to make sure that I know where this guy's head is at because I know what the guy's been saying prior. And I just killed a whole city. But no, you let this guy walk right into your chamber, just you and him. And of course, the guy kills you. That's not even a surprise. And second of all, the dragon not killing Jon Snow doesn't make sense either. So the dragons are now sentient to the level that the dragon symbolically destroys the throne and not him? What? That is crazy. It's crazy, guys. Because I'm just saying, if that's the direction you want to go with the dragon, that the dragon is that cognizant of the symbolic nature of the throne and what is at play and what is going on, there's a hell of a lot of decisions the dragons themselves should have been making throughout the whole show and series when we've seen them. Like not getting itself killed by one shot by Euron, who somehow by magic happens to be at the same exact spot that Jaime Lannister is getting his boats from, that's hidden in the, like, when I saw that I was like, why is Euron here? And of all the survivors of Euron's fleet, why is he the survivor and happens to be getting, even if he gets up on shore on the exact same spot, why is he getting up on shore on the same spot at the exact same time that Jaime Lannister is there? The coincidence and contrivance is staggering. Second of all, is he's that good that he's able to be, look, not only that, the fact that they fight and he stabs the guy, or rather he kills Euron. Jaime Lannister kills Euron, and Euron stabs Jaime Lannister and says, I got you, I killed Jaime Lannister. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, the wounds are so bad that he's going to die. But Jaime Lannister is operating for the rest of the episode fully fine. In fact, the wounds didn't have any impact on him doing anything. He was able to get to Cersei, fine. He was able to get her out of the castle, fine. And the only thing that stops him is boulders falling on his head. So why did you injure him? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no point in him being injured if the injury isn't going to play a factor in what happens to this guy. Anyway, guys, you know what? I've said a lot about this. I'm now going to try and bring him